Okay. Okay, as I mentioned to you before, for your assignment, okay, so you need to submit it during the study week. Okay, I will check. Yeah, forgot to check when actually is the study week. Okay? So I will let you know by today, okay, the deadline for your assignment. Okay. Okay. So for today class, I will introduce to you what is research. Okay? Then we will focus on the what we call on the chapter 1, okay, which is the introduction part, uh, how to create the research objective, how to define the problem statement, how to write for the limitations and scope of study. So how to explain on the significance of the study. So then I'll also be introduced to you what we call as a dimensional analysis, especially for those who are doing quantitative study. So it is very important for you to know how to use the dimensional analysis. And then I also will explain to you about the hypothesis. Okay. Okay. So what is research? Okay. Okay. Basically, there are some slides that I will skip because I already shared with you. So then you can do your self review. Okay. Because some part is very the explanation almost similar. Okay, this is just to explain what is research. Okay? Although there are some parts which is we can call is a part of a research, but we need to look on the whole situations. Okay, because the research is all about how we do it a very comprehensive and scientific way. Okay, okay, for example, for this case, okay, I just want to share how this guy came do some part of research activities, okay? But still we could not consider it is a piece of research approach. Okay, so for example, Mr. Samad prepared a paper on computer usage in secondary school after reviewing literature on the subject available in this university library and called it a piece of research. Okay, so that is for the case number 1. Okay. So then we have case number 2. Haji Ali says that he has researched and completed a document which gives information about each of his students, their SPM result, their parents' income, and distance of their school from home. Okay, so SPM for Malaysians it is like a O level. It is a general examination for the high secondary, high junior school. Okay. Okay. The third one. Okay. Mr. Wilson participated in the workshop on curriculum development and prepared what he calls a research report on the curriculum for building technicians. He did this through a literature survey on the subject and by discussing with the participants of the workshop. Okay. So none of none of the above cases can be classified under the name of research. Okay. Okay, for example, for the first one, okay, although he has some literature review, okay, on the subject available, okay, on this issue of computer usage in secondary school, okay, but he doesn't know what is the problem statement, okay, that he want to solve. Okay, he only what we call as a review article only. Okay? So it is not a problem solving approach. Okay. However, the literature review, or reviewing literature can call as a part of research methodology. Okay, then for the case number 2, okay, so this guy, okay, try to give an informations, okay, regarding the age and any other attributes, okay. However, data collections still considered as a part of research methodology. Okay? So on the first case, we doesn't know what is the, we could not need to have what is the problems need to be solved. Okay? If we are providing just an informations, okay, so we can consider as a data collection process. Okay? So then we should continue with the analysis. Okay? Then we may come up with the solutions, for instance. Okay? Then the case number 3, okay, Mr. Wilson participated in the workshop, okay, research report on curriculum for building technicians. Okay, so we identify that that is an issue on the, my voice is not clear. I have increased the volume for the microphones. Anyone have problems to hear my voice? Okay, well, let me use the headphone. Okay, is it clear? Hello?
Yes, yes, now it's clear.
So then, yeah, he prepared a report, okay, on the curriculum for building technicians. Okay. So what he has done is by make a survey, okay, and also get some informations from the participants. Okay, so this is we can consider almost near to a research approach. Okay. However, in order to produce a piece of a research report, okay, so then we should also include the analysis and then try to come up with the good finding to resolve the problems. Okay. So Wilson has used a very good approach, okay, on the research methodology. Okay. So for this case, we can consider as what we call as a qualitative research, not quantitative. Okay, because he want to study on the behavior, okay, of the technicians, okay, in order to come up with the curriculum for the building technicians. Okay. So now we try to look on how to create a good research approach. Okay. First, we need to get to know what is the problem first. Okay. Because we want to solve the problems. Okay. Although we have a problems, if we are not doing in systematic and scientific way, okay, so we also could not consider as a piece of research. Okay. So for this example, okay, a general manager of a car producing company was concerned with the complaints received from the car user that the car they produce have some problems, okay, with rattling sound at the dashboard and the rear passenger seat after a few thousand kilometers of driving. Okay. So then we look what is the action taken by this general manager. Okay, so he received a complaint. Okay, then the problem is there is a rattling sound at the dashboard. Okay, and also the rear passenger seats after a few thousand kilometers of driving. Okay. So when we see the problems, okay, so we need to look it in detail, okay, and then try to find out the way, okay, to solve the problems, okay, and then come up with the solutions. Okay. Okay. I've identified what we call as the key point on how to conduct for a research. Okay. So then what he did, okay, he obtained informations from the company workers to identify the various factors influencing the problems. Okay. So first we need to identify the problems. Okay. So from there, he then formulated the problems and generated a hypothesis or guesses. Okay. So we have identified the problems. Okay. Then we need to formulate the problems. Okay. So how to formulate the problems? So we should come up with several guesses or hypotheses. Okay. For example, okay, usually for the hypothesis, okay, it should have what we call as independent and dependent parameter. Okay. So for example, okay, let's say if we deal with foundation issue, okay, so that is deformations after we apply a load on the soil. Okay. So the independent factor or parameter usually for the deformations is related to time. Okay. So then the dependent parameter is the deformations. Okay. So that from there we can create the hypothesis. Okay. So it means that when time is increased, okay, the deformation also will be increased. Okay. So that is the simple way how we create the hypothesis. Okay. So for this case, okay, actually I know my background is not on mechanical, okay, but from what he has identified the factor from the from the company workers, okay, so then he formulate the problem and generate the hypothesis. Okay. So later on, okay, he construct checklist and obtain requisite information from a prospective sample of car. Okay. So the checklist can be considered as a research methodology. Okay. So when we do a research, okay, once we have identified the problems, then we formulate the problems. Okay. From there, we need to have a research methodology. Okay, so once we have the research methodology, so then we need to gain the data. Okay, so the data collections, later on, we may analyze the data that we have collected. Okay, so data collections and analysis data is the procedure when we carry out for a research. Okay. So after we have the data and analyze the data, then we may interpret the results, okay, in the light of his hypothesis. Okay. So the second and the fifth procedure is closely related, okay, because once we have generated the hypothesis, okay, so the way to agree or disagree with the hypothesis is based on the data interpretations. Okay. Basically, when we create a hypothesis, okay, we should relate it to the theoretical background. Okay. We cannot create a hypothesis based our own thought. Okay. So in that case, we need to what we call as do some literature review based on the previous study. Okay, look on the trend. From there, we can come up with the good hypothesis. Okay, so when we come to the data interpretation, okay, so then usually the data interpretation will mesh with the research hypothesis. Okay, so the lastly, okay, come up with the finding and come up with the solutions. Okay, so then we provide the solutions based on all the research approach that we have carried out. Okay, so what we can learn, okay, the researcher went through a sequence of steps, okay, which were in order and thus systematic. Okay, so sequence of steps is very important. We cannot jump to the conclusions. Okay, we need to go in or to solve it step by step. Okay. So the researcher did not just jump at the conclusions, but used scientific methods of inquiry in reaching at conclusions. Okay. Okay. So what drives research? Okay. So we need to have a motivation on doing a research. basically, at the first place, okay, we are more energetic, okay, to do the research. Okay. So when the time, when we did the research, okay, so there will be a lot of obstacle occurs. Okay. Then from there, we need to divert our approach or methods, okay, to overcome the obstacle. Okay. So toward the end, okay, we just want to complete the research, okay, and usually we will not as same at the first place we do the research. Okay, that is very normal. Okay, okay. So then I just list 5 factors that drive the research. Okay, the first one is the curiosity. Okay? Many people are naturally curious about the world around them and want to understand how things work. Scientific research provides a way to satisfy that curiosity by investigating phenomena and uncovering new knowledge. Okay. However, we need to understand that based on the time limitations, okay, we cannot solve the world problems. Okay, but we try to what we call as try to provide a very minor contributions to the knowledge. Okay? Desire to solve problem. Scientists and researchers are often motivated by a desire to solve real world problem, such as finding cures for disease, developing sustainable energy sources, or addressing environmental challenge. So intellectual challenge, conducting scientific research can be intellectually challenging and stimulating as it requires critical thinking, problem solving, and creativity. Okay. Career advancement, for many scientists and researchers, conducting research is a way to advance their career and gain recognitions within their field. Okay. So yeah, for example, some of you has a degree, then to enhance your career, okay, you need to have a master. Okay. So then if you want to pursue for your PhD, okay, then you can advance your career later on. Okay. So that is why some of the people do the do for the postgraduate study. Okay. Personal fulfillment. Some individuals are drawn to scientific research because it provides a sense of personal fulfillment and accomplishment as they contribute to the advancement of knowledge and the betterment of society. Okay. So this is the 5 factors that drive to do a research. Okay. So I have list some of the meaning of research, okay, based on several reference book. Okay. So usually the terms that they use is more related on the systematic process. Okay. So systematic process of inquiry to find answer to problems or interest, investigate the problem systematically, carefully, thoroughly. Okay, research is organized, systematic database, critical scientific inquiry. Okay. So research is an endeavor or effort to discover answer to intellectual and practical problem through the application of scientific methods. So research is systematic effort to gain new knowledge. Research is a systematic process of collecting and analyzing information in order to increase our understanding of the phenomenon about which we are concerned or interested. Okay. Okay. So just put this. Okay. So when we conduct a research, okay, so we need to have a very clear objective. Okay, so objective uh, is can be a tangible or intangible product. Okay? Usually, when we deal with uh, quantitative research, it can be a tangible product. Okay? When we deal with qualitative research, it can be intangible product. Okay? Because there are a lot of type of research. Okay? Usually for the what we call for the engineering disciplines, okay? We almost deal with an applied research. Okay, so this is what is the objective of conducting a different type of research. Okay, for example, exploratory or formulative research to gain familiarity with a phenomenon or to achieve new insight into it. Okay, or descriptive research portray accurately the characteristic of a particular individual, situation, or a group. Okay. Dynasty research to determine the frequency with which something occur or which is associated with something else. Okay. So there's a lot of type of research. Okay. 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 For us, it is more related to the practical. Okay. The goal of research is to solve problem of interest. This problem may be of a theoretical or practical in nature. Okay? So for us, we are more try to provide a solution, okay, for any problem that we are. So as an engineer, okay, usually we deal with the applied research. Okay, so there is a hypothesis testing research. Okay, to test the hypothesis of a causal relationship between variable. Okay? The scientific community tend to be more interested in research that push the frontier of knowledge. The aim of research should be to desire, predict, explain, interpret, or demonstrate. So this is several type, several type of research with their objective. Okay? So for us, we are more related to the applied or practical research. Okay. Later on, I will explain several types of research that usually conducted by the researcher. Okay, what is research? Problem solving, finding out, application of the scientific approach to study a problem, control inquiry concerning a certain event or events, systematic control, empirical and critical investigation of natural phenomena guided by theory and hypothesis about the presumed relation among such phenomena. Okay, so systematic control, empirical is more related on the trend that have been carried out by several previous researchers. Okay, so yeah, we have as I mentioned, we have dependent and independent parameter. Okay, so usually all of this trend has been discussed by the previous researcher. Okay, so then for us is to verify or validate the trend, okay, from our new, for example, material or from our new mathematical approach. Okay, let's say if our trend is agree well with the previous researcher, okay, so means that we have come up with a very good empirical study. Okay. Let's say if our trend is not well agreed with the previous researcher, okay, so then we need to look in detail or repeat the analysis, okay, because usually our finding should be similar with the previous study, because all the previous study, okay, is guided by the theory and the hypothesis. Okay. Perhaps we have a problems, okay, when we carry out for the studies. Okay. So systematic, because it follows certain steps that are logical in order. Okay, these steps are understanding the nature of problem to be studied and identifying the related area of knowledge, reviewing literature to understand how others have approached or deal with. Collecting data is an organized and controlled manner so as to arrive at valid decisions. Analysis data appropriate to the problems, drawing conclusion and make generalizations. Okay? So this is the step. And usually this step is more similar to your thesis chapters. Okay? So for example, the first chapter is related to introduction. In the introduction, there should be a problem statement, okay? And then we need to have the research objectives, scope and limitation, significance of the study. Okay, so when you go to the chapter 2, you should carry out for the review. Okay, then you may review several articles on the journal. Okay. Collecting data. Okay. Collecting data, okay, is an organized and controlled. So then the collecting data is more related to the research methodology, okay? And analyzing data is more related to data analysis in the chapter 4, okay? Then we come up with the conclusions, okay, based on the chapter 4, okay? And the conclusions should answer our research objective, okay? Okay, later on we discuss on the research objective. Okay. For example, if you have released 3 research objectives, okay, then your conclusion should answer your research objective. Okay, so this is the same, but I put it in a flow, okay, or we call it as a flow chart. Okay. So in your research methodology, okay, you need to show your research flow chart. Okay. So, for example, from the beginning, carry out for literature review, okay, then let's say if you have a data, I mean, you conduct for a parametric study, okay, so then you need to explain what is the parameter that you want to look at, okay, and then what type of method of analysis that you use. Okay, let's say if you carry out for laboratory testing, okay, then you need to explain, okay, what test that you may carry out. If you do, for example, for a survey or interview, okay, so then you need to show or explain how the process of the interview. Okay. Okay. Then from there, we carry out for the analysis. Okay. If you are use a numerical modeling, finite element, okay, then you need to explain what type of um, tool or software that you may use. Okay. All should be portrayed in a research flow chart. Okay. Okay, this is some of the example of a checklist. Okay. When we want to conduct for the research methodology. Okay. Yeah, I still remember when I did my PhD, okay, I bring every time I want to conduct for the testing, so I need to bring the checklist. Okay. Yeah, to prevent for any if I skip any step, uh, so I need to I need to make sure that I will not skip for any steps. Okay? So that's why I need to bring the checklist. Okay? So this is example of the checklist. Okay? When we do the data collections, okay? Recording data, analyzing data, interpreting data, and then the last one is presenting the data. Okay, why this is a checklist? Okay, when we want to start for the introduction and also on the literature review sections or chapters. Okay, so the first thing is the title. Okay, it should be reflect the content of your study. Okay, and the title also should be concise. Okay, then we have a limitations of words to make sure that you are not exceeding the limitations of the words. If I'm not mistaken, not more than 15, 1-5. Okay. So then we have abstract or summary. Okay. So the abstract or summary should what we call as also concise and have all the related informations. Okay. For example, you should have introduction, problem statement. Okay. Then you can also include a very brief on the aim of the study. Okay, then you need to provide for your procedure and also your result. The last one is your conclusions. Okay. Okay, background, context, or rational. Okay. So from here, you need to come up with the research problems. Okay. And the rationale of you to carry out for the study. Then what how the way that you can what we call as provide the solutions should be in the background context and rationale. Okay, aim and objective. Okay, you need to have what will be the aim and objective, okay, of your research. Okay. Usually for the objective, we should rely on the SMART abbreviations. Okay. Later on, I will explain what is SMART. Okay. SMART. Okay. So hypothesis. Usually for research proposal, it is better to have a research object hypothesis. Okay. So then we need to have a hypothesis. Okay. So then from your hypothesis, later on you test it based on your finding. Okay, is it agree or disagree? Okay, so then on the literature review, okay, usually your literature review should be, you should narrow down and very focused. Okay, it looks like a pyramid. Okay, okay, all but the upside down pyramid. Okay, so the first section should be very general to explain the research problem. Okay. Then you need to explain what is the important parameter. Okay. At the same time, you need to write based on the previous finding. Okay. Then you need to focus on the most recent, what we call recent literature review. Okay, the most recent usually this is 5 years back. Okay, for example, now it's 2025. Okay, so you need to get uh, a review, okay, based on starting from 2020, okay, to 2025 articles. Okay. So the last one is on the summary. Okay. So then you need to provide, okay, what from your study, what is the contribution, okay, that you can share, okay, with the public or with the with the any other researcher. Okay. Okay. However, for master by top course or master project, okay, since you only have 6 months, okay, to carry out for your master project, okay, including the testing, writing. Okay. So actually, the level is a little bit higher compared to the final year project of undergraduate program. Okay. So we, okay, you can, what we call as, you can repeat the same procedure with the other previous researcher. Okay. Let's say you use a different material, then you repeat the similar procedure, okay, with the other researcher. Okay. However, you need to have more parameter, okay, which is to describe it is more advanced compared to the undergraduate level. Okay. For master by research, okay, you need to provide a very minor contribution to the knowledge. Okay. So means that, for example, in geotechnical modeling, okay, so we have several type of model. Okay. For example, numerical modeling, physical modeling, full-scale modeling, mathematical or theoretical modeling, empirical modeling. So for master by research, okay, if you are focusing on numerical modeling, okay, if is nobody come up with the same approach with you by using numerical modeling, okay, so for master by research, you can consider that is a minor contribution. Although if there is somebody or any researcher has carried out the same but use a different type of model. For example, they use a physical modeling, okay, but there are no study use a numerical modeling. So we can consider as enough for the master by research. Okay. Then for the PhD program, okay, you need to make sure that there are no study has been carried out, okay, from all other type of modeling. Okay. So that is the PhD level. Okay. Although we may consider as a minor contribution, okay, but based on all the geotechnical modeling, for example, okay, so there are no study has been carried out. So then you may use the physical modeling testing, okay, to carry out for the study. Okay. Then you are the one that do the same, do the study, okay, and no other study has been used any type of modeling to provide the solutions, okay, based on your study. Okay. So then for master by thought course, okay, it should be higher than the final year project, okay, and usually the pages number for your thesis is around 80 to 100, because for the master, for the undergraduate level, it should more than 60 page. Okay, so then you need to produce a little bit advanced compared to the master, compared to the undergraduate level. Okay. Okay, so this is a flow chart, okay, just to mention on the how we conduct for the literature review. Okay, so okay, this is much more better compared to this one. Okay, so then you need to prepare for your research flow chart, okay, that have a several complexity, not a very straightforward as compared to this one. Okay, so you need to learn on how to prepare for your flow chart on your research methodology chapter. Okay. At the same time, you need to know how to use different type of shape. Okay. For example, if we use a diamond shape, okay, so then it require for us to make justifications. Okay. Let's say if it's yes, so then we can continue. If not, we need to repeat the same or change some procedure from the past. Okay. So usually for your flow chart in this methodology, you should include the proof to explain your research objective. Okay. So okay, we have objective 1 here, okay, then objective 2. You should put in your flow chart. Okay. Okay, this is type that I mentioned, okay, on how to use several shape to represent the activity in your research methodology. Okay. So flowchart of a search strategy. Okay, so this is how the flow, okay, to carry out for the search strategy. Okay. So choose a topic, find background information. Okay, is the topic good enough? Is the topic narrow enough? If yes, then you continue. If not, then you change, do some slightly change. Okay, then find material, locate, okay, read, evaluate and take notes. Okay, refine topic. Okay, if enough information, then you can organize the material. If not, then you need to add more. Okay, think and synthesis. Okay, repeat process until you're ready to write. Okay, then do the writing. Okay. Okay, we move to the scientific methods. Okay, however, this is not. This is just a guide for you to prepare for your research. Okay, so usually two type of uh, scientific methods: inductive and inductive. Okay, so usually for the engineering field, okay, we use the deductive approach compared to the inductive. Okay. So for the deductive, usually we use a logic or reason to form a conclusion or opinion about something, okay, from general to specific. Okay. But for the inductive, using particular example to reach a general conclusion about something, which is from specific to general. So means that from very specific, then we come up with a general conclusion. Okay. But usually for us, okay, from a general, then we narrow down to a very specific issue. Okay, so this is a very simple example to differentiate between inductive and deductive reasoning. Okay, so for the inductive, okay, means that from specific to a general. Okay, so the activities do the observations. Okay, so for this case, elephant depends on water to exist. Okay, observe a pattern. All observed animal depends on water to exist. Okay, develops a theory. All biological life depends on water to exist. Okay, means that for very specific, okay, make a general conclusions. Okay, so this is just a simple one. Okay. Meanwhile, for a deductive, okay, start with an existing theory. All biological life depends on water to exist. Forming a hypothesis based on the existing theory. All land mammal depends on water to exist. So from there, collect data to test the hypothesis. Study all land mammal species to see if they depend on water. Analyze the result. Does the data reject or support the hypothesis? All land mammal species depends on water to support the hypothesis. Okay, so this is from a very general, and then they're focusing on a land mammal. Okay, or if we focus on elephant only, okay, so then there is a very specific study. Okay, Okay, for example, for my case, okay, there are a lot of ground improvement methods, and the ground improvement methods, okay, can increase the bearing capacity and reduce the settlement. Okay, then I go for very specific methods that called as a deep soil mixing methods. Okay, so from the deep soil mixing methods, okay, there are two types of column installations, which is the end bearing and also floating type. Okay, so then from a general approach, okay, when we increase the number of the column or improvement area, we may increase the bearing capacity of the soil. Okay, so then I do the study and prove it. When increase the number of the column, it increase the bearing capacity. Okay, so the percentage of the improvement only can be gained when I have conduct the study. Okay. So although we have a very general hypothesis, okay, but to know how much the improvement in number, okay, we need to conduct further testing. Okay, from there, we know in terms of percentage the improvement that we have obtained, okay, by using the methods. Okay, a comparison between the inductive and deductive reasoning, okay, construction of hypotheses from casual observation and background knowledge. From the examination of this researcher established certain expectations. Okay, reasoning out consequently of implication hypothesis followed by testing of implication and confirmation or rejection of the hypothesis. Okay, so usually for deductive reasoning, okay, we agree or reject the hypothesis. Okay, but for the inductive, there are no hypothesis testing, okay, that we may carry out because we are from specific to general. Okay, usually the specific agree well with the general. Okay, however, for deductive, usually the general will not give the same result or answer to a very specific study. Okay, so that's why we need to do the hypothesis testing, although it is confirmed or there will be a rejection. Okay? So the finding of mutation add new knowledge to the existing structure of knowledge. Further hypotheses are generated from the existing structure, and the casual observation and testing of this may add to the new applicable knowledge. Okay, this process continues in this manner, and therefore research becomes cyclic and dynamic. Okay, so let's say if the hypothesis is not agreed from the finding, so then we need to do some adjustment on the parameter that we use. Then we need to restart again, okay, until we can close the loop, okay, between the hypothesis with the finding. Okay, so this is the loop, okay, from the hypothesis, okay, observation, existing structure of knowledge, operationally specific testing situation, then the implication of the hypothesis. Okay, so once we close the loop, so it means that we gain a good research cycle. So this is put in a schematic diagram. Okay. The scientific methods, okay, observe, as well, define question, write a testable hypothesis, make a plan, a test experiment, record, evaluate, interpret, and analyze data, critique conclusions. Okay, if no logical explanation, go back and rewrite the hypothesis. Okay, or we need to check our test when during the testing conducted. So critical thinking, observations, observing all parts before drawing conclusions, hypothesis, and educated guess about the outcome of an investigation. That is information, critique, identify the problem, success with investigation, logical expected to happen, explanation, reasons, the cause, or an answer. Okay. Okay, this is on research novelty. Okay. However, for your master project, so it's not required for you to have this novelty. Okay. But I have one student, okay, when he did his project, okay, so he used his full scale data, okay, then he come up with a very good analysis, then he able to publish in a very good journal. Okay, so means that if you have a very good data and then a very clear research problem, okay, once we have published in a very good journal, so we can consider that is a research novelty. Okay. But for master by top course, okay, if you have a very good data, okay, then it's very clear research gap, okay, where it's very limited studies being conducted before, then you come up with a very good finding. Okay, I guess you also are able to publish in a good journal. Okay. So what is research novelty? Scientific research novelty refers to originality or uniqueness of the research finding or approach in relation to existing body of knowledge in the field. A novel scientific research study brings a new perspective, idea, or methodology that contribute to advancing the understanding of a particular topic or problems. Okay, the novelty of research can be evaluated based on the following criteria. The first one is the originality. The research study should present an original idea, approach, or methodology that has not been previously explored or studied in the field. Okay, so it's very difficult for the first one. Okay, significant. The study should address an important problem or question that has not been fully answered or adequately addressed in previous study. Contribution to the knowledge. The research study should provide new insight or knowledge that extend or modify existing theory or concept in the field. Impact. The research study should have the potential to influence future research or practical application in the field. Okay, so it should have these four factor, okay, or criteria to consider as a novelty. So that's why it's very difficult if you have a very time constraint. Okay. So novelty is an important aspect of scientific research as it reflects the creativity and ability of the researcher and contributes to the advancement of knowledge in the field. However, it's important to note that novelty alone is not sufficient to ensure the quality of significance of research study, as it must be rigorously designed executed and analyzed to generate relevant and valid results. Okay, so that is what we call as a research novelty. Okay, so the key point, if there are no study from the previous which explore or study on the topic that you want to propose, okay, so we can consider as a research novelty. Okay. Yeah. Okay, research can be divided into 5 categories. We focus on the applied research only. Okay, we have basic or pure or fundamental research, exploratory research, development research, design research. Okay. Okay, this is a basic or pure fundamental research. Refer to original investigation for the advancement of scientific knowledge that do not have the specific objective or application of to practical problems. Okay, so it's not to solve the practical problem. It's very fundamental. Okay, usually for those who are doing on chemistry, physics, and biology, okay, they are more related to the fundamental research. Okay. Okay, the issue is it's not subject to time restraint and it is an open-ended. Okay? So it's very difficult to embark on this fundamental research. Okay? Exploratory research, okay, aims to clarify concept and problems. Okay, for exploratory research is related to a concept. Okay? We have an idea, then we want to explore. Okay? So it will not what we call as be a practical, okay, but we want to investigate, okay, the concepts only. Okay. So for example, research for a new drug and examining the biological effect of a new range of chemical material. Okay. So it is still on the laboratory scale. Okay. We may not apply it. Okay. Once we have reached the maturity, okay, then yeah, we can apply it, okay, to the max. Okay. So this is more related to us applied research. This is directed toward the practical applications of knowledge. So it involves application of basic knowledge for the solution of particular problem, the creation and evaluation of a new concept or components, but not development for operational use. Okay? For example, application of existing scientific knowledge to the problem of own institutions. Okay? So like us, we are more deal with the practical applied research. Okay? Okay, development research, systematic use of scientific knowledge direct toward the production of useful material device. System or methods including designs and development of prototype and processes. Okay? So this is more related to the production. Okay? Yeah, for example, yeah, this is very uh, not very common, okay, for the civil engineering. Okay? But let's say if you come up with a new tools or prototypes, okay, so you can consider as development research. For example, there are two students of me that develops what we call as real-time monitoring systems. Okay, so he developed the prototypes, okay, to monitor for the slope movements or soil movements. Okay, so then we can consider as a development research. So can be further classified into product development, okay, refer to research regarding new product and product new to industry or combination of product component in a new way. Okay. So then we have a process development, refer to research into new or improved method of control or control system and changes of improvement in manufacturing and process technology. Okay. Although it can be product or process development. Okay. So then we have a design research, research directed at cost and performance improvement to existing product, process or system, recombination, modification, testing of system using existing knowledge or opening new market for existing products. Okay. So parts and component research. Okay. So this is under the designs research. Okay. Usually, for example, for a car productions, okay, so they will be study on parts only. Okay, do a study on the part, okay, then the part can improve the cost of performance of the car. So that is considered as a design research. So I put it in a table form, okay, to differentiate or to explain on the type of research. Okay. And this is the to differentiate between the quantitative and qualitative. Okay, so quantitative, okay, to study relationship cause and effect. Okay, so usually for the quantitative, okay, we can measure, okay, the output. Okay. For example, when we do a study to check for the strength of the material. So the output is the strength. Okay, so usually that is under the quantitative. Okay, so qualitative as in a phenomenon as it in which detail. Okay, so this is more related to study on the behavior. Okay, or satisfactions. Okay, so designs developed prior to study. Okay. So we already have the manual, the procedure, for example, to use the equipment. So then we need to develop it for the study. So for qualitative, okay, throughout the testing, we can change, okay, it more flexible and it evolves during study. Okay, so approach deductive, which is test the theory. However, for the qualitative, inductive may generate theory. Okay, tools use a pre-selected instrument. Okay. The research is a primary data collection tool. So when they come up with the interview session, survey session, so that is the way for the qualitative approach. So the researcher is the primary data collection tools. Okay. Sample use last sample. Okay. Qualitative usually use small sample. Okay. So yeah, we need to they need to understand how to do the sampling, okay, to represent the whole population. So they need to know what is the number required. Okay. Statistical analysis on numeric data. Okay. Yeah, you need to master on the use of statistical analysis. Or now we have what we call as we have AI. So we also can use the AI to do the analysis. Okay. So however, for qualitative, okay, the approach is use the narrative descriptions, okay, and interpretations. Okay. So means that once we have the result from the interview sessions or from the survey, okay, so then we need to put it in a team. Okay, means that okay, so this is referred to what type of teams A, teams B, or team C. Okay, so that is the way how to carry out for the narrative analysis. Okay, so this is the differentiate between fundamental research and applied research. Okay, try to expand the already existing scientific knowledge base. Fundamental research is purely theoretical. Primary concern is to develop scientific knowledge and prediction, while for the applied research focus on solving real life problems. Applied research has a practical approach. Primary concern is to stress on development of technology and technique with the help of basic science. Sorry, I will stop at 9:15. Okay. So we try to best to complete until the hypothesis and parametric study. Okay. So this is a difference between descriptive and analytical research. Okay, for descriptive is more related to study on the behavior, okay, describing the characteristic of individual, describing the state of affair as it exists and at present, while analytical research is primarily concerned with testing hypotheses and specifying and explaining relationship by analyzing the fact of or information already available. So then we have applied and fundamental research, quantitative and qualitative research, conceptual and empirical research. Okay, conceptual is to develop a new concept, while empirical, which is based on experience or observations, then we try to verify the previous experience or observations relationship. Okay. So this is another type of research: on-time research, longitudinal research, diagnostic research, experimental research, exploratory research, historical research. Okay. So there is a several type of research. As I mentioned, we are more related to the experimental research or applied research. Okay, now we go for the research objective. Okay. And so once we know how to come up with the research problems, okay, so then to identify or to guide us what should we do in order to provide the solution for the research problems, we should have a research aim and objective. Okay, so research objective are the specific component of the research problem that you will be working to answer or complete in order to answer the overall research problems. Okay, the objective refer to the question to be answered through the study. They indicate what we are trying to get from the study or the expected result or outcome of the study. Okay. That is why when you construct for your flow chart, okay, you need to include what is the objective for each phase. Okay. Result objective should be clear and achievable as they directly assist in answering the research problem. The objective may be specific in the form or either statement or question. Usually, it's better to use a statement rather than questions. Generally, they are written as a statement using the word to. Okay, for example, to discover, to determine, and to establish. Okay. So for master by project, or when you come up with your proposal, at least you need to have minimum 2, okay, and maximum 3, not more than that. Okay, so this is SMART. Okay. So when you want to develop for your research objective, okay, you should have a smart, use this SMART. Okay, specific, clearly state what you will do. Okay? So when you want to construct for your research objective, it should be very specific. Okay. So for example, okay, you want to study on the strength. Okay, so then you need to know what type of strength, tensile, compressive strength, okay, and what type of approach. Okay, you use what type of machine. So then you need to specify it. Okay, and manageable, measurable, and the outcome be assessed. Okay, so then, okay, as I mentioned, you want to study on strength. What type of strength that you want to use? Okay. A, attainable, achievable, okay. It should be realistic with available resources and time. Okay. So before you can come up with your research objective, you need to know what is the capacity or facility in the lab. Okay. How much time that require for you to do the testing. Okay. Are relevant, okay, align with your research question. Okay. So each of your research objectives should related to your research question. Okay. Time bound. Okay. You should know that you have a very limited time. Okay, 6 months. Okay, at least for your testing, you should or your analysis, you should provide half from the 6 months. Okay, so means that 3 months you should allocate your time to do the testing, to do the analysis. Okay, so from with that, okay, for me, for master project, 6 months is enough, okay, to be considered as an effort for you to do the testing. Okay, for example, for master by research, usually 6 months full solid to do the testing. For PhD, minimum is 1 year of solid time to do the laboratory testing. Okay. So SMART, okay, SMART is the way that we use to come up with the research objective. Okay. So usually for the research objective, okay, we need to use very specific terms. Okay. Sorry, in your slide, I did not include this. I will share with you the latest one. Okay, you should have use a right terms or word. Okay, for example, when we do for a quantitative, okay, research, we need to use the output terms. Okay. So for example, the output terms to determine, to identify, to evaluate, to measure. So that is the output terms. Emphasize result or outcome. Okay. While for the process, okay, usually related to a quantitative. To examine, to explore, to investigate, to understand. Okay, so that is the term, okay, when we use to prepare for the for the for the research objectives. Okay, where our focus is the process of discovery. Okay, so for the output terms, your research is aiming for clear, measurable finding. You are working with scientific, technical, or policy-oriented study. You need to show concrete deliverable or result. Okay, while for the process, okay, it's more related to qualitative, exploratory, or interpretive research. You are early in the field or topic very known. You're trying to understand or deeper into a phenomenon. Okay, so that is the differentiate between the term that you use in your research objective. Okay, if you are if you study related to quantitative, so you need to use the output terms. While if your study is related to qualitative, you are may use the process terms. Okay. Okay. Sorry, it's already 9:19. Okay. So I need to prepare to go for a workshop. Okay. So I guess I end my class for today. Okay. Next week will be replaced by somebody, but I plan to have what we call as additional class, okay, to complete the other slide presentation. Okay. Is it okay to have the same time, okay, to replace or to have the additional class? Okay. Because next week will be replaced by either Dr. Hisham or Dr. Shamila. Okay. Because I only have 2 class or 2 time for the week 1 in week 3. Later on, I will deliver for another class or another topic. I'm not sure on which week. Okay. So hopefully we will meet next week. Okay. And then I will let you know, okay, regarding the time. Okay. Okay. I stop. So I will share with you the attendance.